Hello, everybody, and welcome. You're watching The Cinematic Bridge on the Art of Filmmaking, presented by Golden Gate Films. I'm your host, Elizabeth Perry. A quick shout out, though, to composer George Shaw for the fantastic music on our new intro. Thank you, George. I think he's watching today, too, so that's a bonus. And thank you all for joining us.
Yes, and I am Brian. Just a quick note, if you're watching live and have any questions for Suzanne, just feel free to drop them in the comments, and if time allows, we'll bring in a few to our conversation.
Yes, indeed. Questions are welcome. This show is being recorded and will be available on LinkedIn and on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to share it with your networks. The YouTube channel is Cinematic Bridge. Cinematic Bridge. Today's episode is entitled From First Pitch to Lasting Partnership and features award-winning Hollywood producer Suzanne Lyons. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank
yes,
you.
Suzanne, welcome. Yes, and
I'm
Suzanne
excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. You've had an amazing journey. You know, it's from Canada to Hollywood. You've been building bridges and creating award-winning films along the way. So we are excited to hear more.
All right. She co-founded Snowfall Films, produced multiple award-winning films, and has worked with some of the biggest names out there. Christopher Walken, Naomi Watts, Susan Sarandon, Donald Sutherland, Peter Fonda, just to name a few.
And she's also the author of Indie Film Producing, which is basically required reading for anyone making films today.
Absolutely. So let's get started. Suzanne, once again, we're thrilled to have you here. All right, there you go. The Cinematic Bridge, welcome again. Suzanne, I want to start with something personal.
Okay.
We got a sneak peek of this story in the green room over here, but you've quoted Helen Keller from her book, The Open Door. Quote, life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Why does that quote resonate with you, and how has it helped shape your journey as a producer?
Good question. Very good question. Nobody's ever asked that one before, by the way, and I've probably done about 200 speaking engagements. So for me, I think it started when I was a little girl. I lived in the hospital a lot because I had a benign tumor behind the eye, which you might be able to, guess. And but when I was older, when I was into puberty, obviously it went from benign to malignant, and nobody told me anything. They just said there was a little tree growing behind my eye, and I believed them because no internet back then, no nothing. It's just like okay, and I had 16 surgeries before I was like 11 years old, and I just thought, oh, the tree got. But Mom said, oh, the tree's bigger this time. Now we have to go to the city. So we went into Montreal, and I lived there at the hospital for 7 months. Loved every minute of it. Thought I was totally independent, being 600 miles away from family. But there was, I think, something happened during that time where I really got to think that life was, I don't know, I got to think that I was like, that life was mine, like that I got to have fun. And I had fun at that hospital the whole time. And to me, that fun translated into joy and expansion and learning. And I don't know, I feel like I was independent from a very young age. And I loved learning. And I think what we're here for is expansion. Our expansion is the expansion of the universe. It really, really, truly is. So for me, being able to make movies and make people laugh, which is my favorite thing in the world, make them cry or scare them, whatever else. I love horror films too. It just gives an opportunity for us to escape, because sometimes, when you're little and you're going through many surgeries and so on, escape is important. And I think we all need that sometime, no matter what we're going through or whatever. We just need that little bit of escape, that half hour or 2 hours or whatever, just to take us into another world. And there's something wonderful about being in another world, and that we have that opportunity. So I think that's part of what shaped that journey. And I just loved film. I remember when I was 7, I went to see a movie. It was 25 cents, 20 cents for a movie and 5 cents for your treat back then. Not that, please don't go back and check the timing. And it was The Sword and the Stone. And I remember being in the front seat. My cousin and I, we used to go to the cinema. It was like a 2-hour walk, a 2-mile walk to get there, and then a ferry boat across to the little village and stuff. But I'm from New Brunswick, northern New Brunswick, Canada. And what happened is he pulled that sword out of the stone, and I think I went with it. Like, I was truly transported to another world. I'm not kidding. Like, truly transported to another world. And it was that feeling of being in another world that I just cherished. So I think that's what kind of led that whole journey, if that answers the question. I do get off on tangents, so do stop me.
Well, I mean, that's actually a perfect lead into my next question for you is, you spoke a bit about your childhood and how you were impacted by film. Did you feel that you always had this sense that you would be called to the entertainment industry, or was that a realization that ended up coming later?
It was later. It's funny because I know I've cherished that feeling of escape, you know, and being in other worlds and so on. And also in many cases learning, you know, we just had the one channel at home. Back then there was no cable or anything, of course. So, but I felt lots of times I'd be learning too when I'd be watching, you know. Just even coming home from lunch, we'd have those little, you know, half-hour things for children where I was learning French and, you know, Cheyenne, I remember was the name of it, and all kinds of fun things. So I think that it wasn't though until later. I'm trying to think. I think when I was at university, in my 3rd year of university, all that mattered before that was boys, you know, which of the cutest boys are going to be at which residence's party on Friday and Saturday night. That's it. A little bit of studying, but mostly boys. And then 3rd year. And then what happened is one of the Montreal gave us all their old black and white equipment. And one of the professors said, I need about 10 people to help me, you know, lay the cables, you know, throughout the tunnels of our university so we could have our own little television show, or, you know, network, we called it, which I did. I literally laid the cables, helped lay the cables. And it was my first night, and it was a basketball game, and I was behind the camera shooting the game. And I felt so in love that it was scary. I mean, I just thought I didn't care about boys anymore. The next year, I knew I had to finish school, so I had another year and a half to go. But all I cared about was, you know, was finished school. And right away, but that next day, I applied to all the film and broadcasting schools across Canada. I'm not kidding. It was like I fell so in love that I kept bothering people. Oh, there's a football game this weekend. Do you want me to tape it? Oh, I heard Professor Brian, you're going on a thing. Do you want me to tape your class before you leave? Like I'm sure I was annoying. And anyways, so I knew then that I was going into film and broadcasting, which is where I met my husband. It was London, Ontario, Fanshawe College. And it's just, I love it. I used to get up, this is terrible. Hopefully no one's still there. But we'd get up at 5 a.m. and I'd gather a bunch of other students around because I was older, you know, I was 5 years older than everybody, because I'd already gone to school for like 5 years. And so I gather everybody together and we go in and get the equipment unbeknownst to the professors, like at 5 a.m. And I would do documentaries. Like we go around the town of London, Ontario. And I mean, I would do the farmers markets. I mean, all kinds of documentaries or shooting. I was just like obsessed beyond words, to be honest. So I loved it. And after those 2 years, I worked in television broadcasting. One of the first female vice presidents. I was 29 years old when I became the vice president of marketing and promotions for a network and a affiliate. And and then my husband and I decided, you know, because he was a great writer, that we'd move out here. We moved to Philly first. It was supposed to be a year, and 5 years later we moved to LA. So we've been here for a long time, and he's been a showrunner for a long time in television. And I just got my first TV series, which was exciting because that was my goal for last year. Almost all my goals got checked off actually this past year. Yeah, and so
amazing. Amazing. We do have a comment from a fan, which I would like to read to the audience. Suzanne was the very first, from Edward Lusk.
Wow.
Suzanne was the very first producer to respond to my feature pitch. I'm forever grateful for her support and graciousness, and I do check in with her now and then just to say hello. So hello.
Hello, Edward. That's so fun. That's great. I love that.
All right. So actually, my next question was along the same lines. As your career as a producer, was this something, was it preordained, or was it a result of experience, instinct, and willingness to take risks? I mean, like, why producer?
I think the second one. It was like not pre-planned. Like it evolved, kind of thing. Right behind the camera that day in that basketball game, I knew that I was going to be going into the industry. I knew that. When I moved here, however, I got distracted because what upset me a lot. My husband had won the Warner Brothers sitcom competition. With it came the head of television at agents at William Morris Agency. So he sat by the phone. And then I realized a lot of people sat by the phone. And it was making me crazy because my background was marketing and promotion, where you have to promote, right? Market yourself. And then I, met this wonderful, wonderful actress on stage, Tamara Zook. And she said, and I said to her after, I said, oh my God, I met her. And I went up backstage and I said, oh my God, you're amazing. You need to be in films. Oh, Suzanne, that's not my job. That's my agent's job. And then I hear, oh, that's my manager's job. And I saw all these adults around me within my first 3 months saying, that's not my job. And I'm going, hello, you want to relinquish your power to somebody who's got another 150 clients who they love because those people are making money and you're not yet? Excuse me, does it even make sense? And so and Heidi Wall, a friend of mine at the time, she felt the same way. So we started a company called Flash Forward Institute, and I taught business. Nobody was teaching business. And it made me crazy. So I probably spent about 7 years just teaching those classes, in mostly three cities, Vancouver, Toronto, and LA, and a little bit in San Francisco, Austin, and New York, but mostly, those other three cities, especially here. And it just made me feel good because people don't realize, I don't care if you're the makeup artist, I don't care who you are the president and CEO of your company, really. So you have to be taking, taking that under your control and take responsibility 100%. So that delayed things for a wee bit. Then one of my best friends from Philly, actually, she was a writer, and she kept getting things optioned by big companies, but nothing got made. And that's when she said, I'm so frustrated, I just want to produce it myself. And I said, well, I'm looking to produce now. I've been here for enough years. Not that we knew what the hell we were doing. Gotta tell you, holy shit. And we had no money, right? So I was the casting director. I did all the negotiations. It was Chris Walken. I mean, Kate and I did all of them, actually. She did the James Caan one. I think I definitely did Naomi Watts. And I mean, so we had no attorney, nothing. And a friend of ours did the budget for us, thank God. And then we met partners in the UK. And so we were on set. Our partners never came to set. It was just Kate and I. Our first day was freezing cold in Wales. It's about half an hour from Cardiff. And we're just standing in the field watching, our director shoot and going, oh my God, what have we done? Like, what the hell are we doing? So we kind of that fake it till you make it thing. But it was good because what I learned, anytime I learn something, I translate whatever I learn into English. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when people are experts, it's kind of difficult to get what they're saying, what they're teaching. So I'm somebody who needs to simplify things, and then I teach everything. So even then I went on and taught film production after that year. I can't help but teach. It's just what I'm made for and what I'm born for, I think. So I don't know if that answered the question or not, or did I?
Well, would you mind, like, for those who don't know, what does it fully mean to be a producer? What do producers really do?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Good
early
answer.
on, I did everything, even on that one, which was a big budget. I still, even on those, because those early ones were all big budgets, just before digital cameras and stuff, right? And so I wore all the different hats. Like I said, we were casting directors. We played the lawyer part. I wrote literally oh my God, what was I thinking? I wrote all those, the deal memos and all that kinds of stuff. We just learned, I learned. Here's the thing. This is really interesting because I should go back and tell you that because I know I don't know everything. I don't know a lot. I know a little tiny bit. So that's why God put 8 billion on the planet just for me, 8 billion people on the planet for me. So the first thing I would do is get at least 2 mentors. And if you don't have a mentor, whoever's listening, for the love of God, get a mentor or two. And please go to SuzanneLyons.net and hit on blog, because there's a mentor protocol. I did a whole thing on the mentor protocol that we used to teach in Flash Forward Institute. So it's really important that you know the protocol before you approach anybody. But that's one of the things I think is important. And because Kate and I didn't know any better, we just did a lot of it ourselves, but with the help of those mentors, people that were doing similar kind of things to what we were doing, similar budgets, similar genres in some case. So that helped tremendously. Just having those mentors helped. And then we started to learn. Obviously, we'd go, oh, you know what? I remember DeWitt Stern calling and asking us for our E&O, and because we were doing our E&O insurance, like this is like what, 8 months later after we've long since been in the UK and we're back in America. And they said, we need the clearance report. And I went, what's a clearance report? So some of the stuff we learned the hard way. So, we didn't know that. That could have been a very big problem. Now, as it was, everybody felt badly, that we hadn't got some of the the rights to some of the products. And so I just called people, and everyone was gracious. Nobody charged us a cent for anything. We just said that, we apologized and that. So, and the other thing too is what I learned is this industry I don't know if it's the unions that do this or not, but there's this feeling of scarcity a lot, especially in this town. There's a feeling of scarcity, like, oh, I better kind of, screw you before you screw me. Kind of there's that kind of a feeling. And I'm not that. I'm the opposite of that. I grew up like super happy. I mean, there was, 8 other kids, and and we lived in a little village that was not doing well, but I mean, there was a lot of love and a lot of graciousness. And I remember we were extremely poor, but there were people more poor than we were. And my mom used to do up boxes on Christmas Eve, and we would drop them at people's homes after midnight mass. So I mean, I grew up with abundance and generosity and graciousness, like that those things, those distinctions were important to me. And so for me, when I'm raising funds, for example, when I did the lower budget films, a bunch of horror films, I would give a lot of perks to the investors, because it's like, if you're going to come play in my sandbox, I want to treat you well. And I came up with perks, and I also did huge finder's fees and all these kinds of things that made life so much easier for me to raise money. And those investors would come back to the next movie and the next movie and the next movie after that. And so it's kind of missing. And I really request and suggest that who's ever listening to really stand in abundance, stand in graciousness. It's such they're wonderful distinctions. And it kind of separates you from the tribe in a sense, and that you kind of, because the other thing I think is always, you got to put the drama on the screen. Never while you're shooting. You have to rise above all the time. There's crazy shit. You got a crew of 100 people, 20 people, 50 people, 150 people. You have to stay up here. You've got to stand in 100% responsibility, 100%, authenticity, 100% everything as the producer. Crazy stuff's going on. You got to be there to sort things out. So that's, right. I don't know if I answered your questions. Like I said, I go off on tangents. You say, Suzanne, stop talking for the love of God, and let's answer the question.
No, not at all. So you talked about some things that you liked and some things to think about or consider. What is your favorite part about being a producer, and what is your least favorite part about being a producer?
Oh, that's kind of interesting, because the first thing that came to mind as soon as you said that is raising the money. And then when you said, what's your least favorite part? Raising the money.
Money.
That is so
why? I mean, can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, without the money, ain't no film, right? Ain't no TV series. So to me, I find that part challenging. To me, life is about jumping off the cliff every day. It's got to be a challenge every day. Got to be a learning curve every day. And that's the fun of it all, right? That's why we chose this industry, not just to have people escape and have fun and, and make an impact. I love like social impact stuff as well. It's not the only reason, it's also, we're learning a lot as we're going along. And so for me, raising the funds is a very big challenge, very big challenge. And what I recommend too is, as you're coming up, through the years, that's what I used to say to my students back in the 90s, is, make sure that you're being proactive all the time, proactive all the time. And so for me, I would meet people. I remember one time calling the PGA long before I was a member of the Producers Guild of America. And I remember saying to them, because I wanted to meet some producers that did movies over 100 million. Like, how do you do that? Right? Because I was always wanting to learn. If I want to learn, I figure everybody wants to learn. So they said, sure, we'd love that. So they filled the room, and I called these companies, mostly their agents or their, companies, and said, so 6 people, I wanted 6 different people. And I got them because I was calling from the PGA in a sense, right? And I got to meet them. And I started teaching that, is like, why not do that? One of my students wanted to meet casting directors. And I said, well, call Women in Film and see if you can put on, a panel where you become their peers. You're the one calling them. You're the one in the green room with all these people beforehand. You're meeting those 6 casting directors. So, you're becoming like a peer, and you get to know them. It's one of my girlfriends got her first TV series because she wanted to interview showrunners, 6 women showrunners. She invited them to dinner. There was only 6 at the time. This was years ago. She invited them to dinner at her place and interviewed them. And then she ended up, about 3 months later, one of them called and said, I'd like to hire you to write a script. So, I mean, it's being out there, meeting the people. And what was the first part of the question? Because I think I went off on a different tangent for a second. What was
No, it was just, what was the good and the bad of being a producer, your favorite part? And your
So that part was the raising the funds, because I find it's the most challenging. And that's why I got off on the tangent, because as you start growing with these people and expanding your map of relationships, what I call a map of relationships, I'm going to explain that in a second, is now I've got wonderful partners around me, absolutely wonderful partners, and partners who have access to, right now we're working with 3 different hedge funds. Honestly, like, so the funding is easier. Yesterday, literally at dinner last night, we just got an A-list actor attached, and I have already the director, A-list director, and the funding all happened yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Through these various relationships, but it's like relationships, like location is to real estate agents, location. Relationships, networking is so important. And I was the worst person, just so you know. And when I moved here, I was terrified. I'd go to, like, how you go to a screening you're invited to, and then there's a little wine and cheese or thing. I would get my wine. I mean, I'm not stupid. I'd get the wine because it was free. And then I'd go in the bathroom and put myself in one of the little stalls and sit and drink the wine until the movie started. That's how bad I was. And I'm a people person, for the love of God, right? But I swear to God, I'd be so freaking scared. And then I had to say to myself, because then I started teaching, right? Teaching. I thought, shit, Suzanne, you better be able to learn to stick out your hand. So my goal was, when I realized my weaknesses, I'm always searching for my weaknesses. I have, I think, 2 blogs on turning your weaknesses into strengths. And I said, okay, the next event, if you just put your hand out once, just once, put your hand out and meet somebody. Second time, 2 people. I recommend you guys do it. Even if you did 4 a month, by the time you hit Christmas, the end of the year of 2026, that's 50 people, just like that you can add to your map of relationships. So I just found that was that part was, that part's kind of important. And then you're growing together, and then there's people who have they're more expert in certain areas that you're not, So one of my partners has these hedge funds. Another one is brilliant at, such and such or whatever, television, so, and I'm just moving into television. So that's something that I think is one of the most important things, is kind of looking for what are those areas. I guess the most fun part, let me just think, the most fun part is probably being on set. I like that. And I always invite my investors to set and make sure that they have the headsets and the chairs, behind the director and all that stuff. So that's a fun part. So I think raising the funds is probably the challenging part. And I think the most fun part is actually being there on set and putting out the fires, like I said, being present. When I'm on set, I eat vegan 100% vegan, mostly raw vegan if I can, just because I want my mind to be clear. I don't want to be using my body for digestion. I want to be using it for being clear, being present, being very present, not getting into the drama, what's going on or whatever. So to me, that's kind of very, very important that you really take on leadership role. I think I wrote an article on leadership. I wrote 2 articles on leadership on my blogs too. It's super important that people learn to take responsibility. I used to teach responsibility, a 10-week seminar, and I think it almost need 10 years. I've been working with it myself for years on how to be constantly 100% responsible.
If you were
We
going
have
to
a comment. Sorry, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you? I just was looking at a comment. Tracy Martin says she's right. Suzanne taught me everything about making relationships. I was in her Flash Forward Institute for years. It's the best education in Hollywood. You have fans.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
I was just going to ask, because what you were talking about, you know, all the different things you've learned, things that are important. If you had to pinpoint one thing that was the most important skill in producing, could you place one as the most important skill? And like, how do you apply that skill?
I think honesty would be one of the ones. You know, I didn't have any money, so I would call Kate, and I would call when we'd be calling agents. I'd always start with, "Hi, I'm Suzanne Lyons. I've got a great script." But you know, because I call the agent, for example. I remember with Joe Pesci, I was calling his attorney in New York, and he hung up on me for about a year because I'd start with, "Hi, Jay, you know, Suzanne Lyons here. I don't have any money, but," and then he'd hang up, and he did that for a year. But I was persistent.
Oh
I think he finally just answered the phone one time because I think he was like, "Suzanne, stop calling." But no, he was then we became best friends, of course. At the time, he was such a sweetheart. But anyways, yeah. So to me, it's like making sure that I'm honest. You know, if I don't have the money, I tell people. If, you know, I mean, whatever it is, I'm very, 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 very honest. Maybe that's the Canadian thing. I'm very polite, maybe a little too polite, apologizing all the time, like we do, right, in Canada. And, but I think that's important. I think another thing that's really important is learning, is being honest about that, you know, this is an area I don't know, you know, and I like recently I've been on with an investment group, and it's kind of like they were saying, "Well, what about this and what about that?" And I'm going, "I don't know that part, and I will find out. And I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out." It's kind of like, I think it's Henry Ford back when he was making the cars, and he ended up going to trial. They were going to actually put him in jail because I guess he didn't know everything. And what he was trying to explain is, I don't need to know everything. I have other people around me who know all the various parts. And once you get that, because I've worked with a lot of people, directors and producers and others and writers even, who think that they have to know everything, or they lie saying they know everything, which causes even more problems and costs more money. But all you have to do is hire somebody or call your friend and say, which is what I did actually the other day, and say, "Listen, I don't know how to do this, and you guys do, you're the experts. Will you help me with this? You know, I'm asking a favor," or in cases if I have money, and I'd say, "You know, I can give you $100 or whatever if you help me with this piece." So I'm always learning, and it's okay. It's okay not to know. There's no way we can know everything. So I think that's the other thing too, is we just have to realize that, you know, that's why there's all these other people. You know, you might notice them on the sidewalk, you know, on planet Earth, because they're there for you, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of times it's a win-win, because then they get involved in a movie or a series or whatever. So did I answer the question? I don't know.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so you might have already answered this one, but bear with me, because the question is, when you're planning a production. So I don't know if this is, I don't really know the different steps of being a producer, but when you're planning a production, what's the biggest challenge or challenging task, and how do you overcome it? Is that the same as the fundraising part?
First, I'm going to do 2 things. One is, let's just go back to relationships for 1 second. Then I'll answer it. Is what I do when I say map of relationships. Let's just get that clear first. In Flash Forward, we used to have to do that, where you put yourself in the center. Like maybe it's in even a little picture. Get a poster board or a Bristol board, depending on who's listening. A big one. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like you get them from Staples, and then you put yourself in the middle, and then you put everybody you know. Everybody you know, because right now everybody's in alphabetical order probably or whatever on your databases or whatever, right? No, put them in all the actors I know, all the producers, all the costume designers, all the potential investors, all the attorneys, all in categories so that you know, okay, how can I connect the dots? So if I'm starting another film, it's like, oh, you know what? I love this director. Oh, you know what? So-and-so, no, I think he mentioned that he knew him. Okay, let's connect that. Like, so look and find out who your team is, right? Once again, you don't have to do anything alone. That's the first thing you do is start connecting the dots. Oh, Tracy. Oh, Tracy knows so-and-so. Okay, great. Let me see if Tracy will introduce me to that person. Like that sort of thing. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is just to take the fear out of it. Because what happens when people option a screenplay, for example, as a producer, is they go into panic mode. Believe me, I've taught a bunch of these classes on producing. And everybody thinks they have to do everything. Oh, so then I don't have to do I don't have to do the budget. You don't have to do the budget. A line producer will do your budget. The line producer, if you look at his list in my book, or hers, the line producer compared to me, I would never do that job. It's way too hard, you know, and it's this many responsibilities compared to me, you know. So, you know, just make sure that you realize that you can that you don't really have to know it all. The other thing is what I do is I take the Bristol board, right? And I say, okay, let's say Kate and I are doing this. This was years ago. Let's say we're doing a horror film and we want it to be at the American film market this year, like, because it's only $200,000. So it's not impossible. If it's a bigger film, I'd say maybe Cannes of next year or Berlin of next year or whatever, right? And then I back time it all. It's kind of way the Romans did the roads. You know, they would put a big rock after, say, a kilometer or something, put a big rock there. And then after another kilometer, not a rock there. So those are called milestones. What are the major things that I need to do along the way? But I work backwards. So I'm not scared. I'm working from there. Oh, it's already done. Great. Okay, we're at the AFM. Oh, the screening's at the AFM. Yippee! We have our sales agent. So, okay, good. What do I need to do? Obviously, 2 months prior, I need to get the sales agent, you know, the footage. I need, what was before that? Delivery, you know, make sure all the delivery items are organized. Okay, before that, we're on set, you know, post, then principal, pre, soft prep. Usually in a low budget, you need about 2 to 3 months for soft prep because you're asking a lot of favors. There's no money yet. Raising the funds. So I break it down, and then, only then do I start breaking it down into more weekly things. Maybe it's monthly, you know, by November, I have to do this. By September, I have to and then I start breaking it down a little further. All of a sudden, it's like, holy shit, that's not so hard. Look at that. I got like 11 months or whatever it is to make this happen. Easy peasy. And that, now somebody might need 2 years because they're just starting, you know, that thing, and they need to learn how to deal with people and how to raise funds and that sort of thing. So that's another kind of thing that I do, and I call it my timeline. It's in the book. I did the one for Seance in the book, but I also did another one for Time Toys. It was a SAG modified children's movie, and it was a director, experienced director, but he wanted to sit with me during the entire process of soft prep and pre-production because he wanted to learn to produce. And so that's what we kind of did. The first thing I did is I said, okay, let's back time it. So it's not so scary. Because the first thing is, oh my God, Suzanne, I have to do a budget and I have to raise $200,000 and I don't know how to do, I've never raised 10 cents. And I said, well, slow down. You don't have to do that right now. That's somewhere along the way. Let's go and look at that. So then when you back time and it's like, oh, you can breathe. Got it. Oh, I don't have to do that till then. Oh, for God's sakes. Like, you know, and then you can look and say, I've allowed 3 months. But you know what? I think I'm going to need 5. Okay, let me readjust things. Okay, it's not going to be AFM. It'll be Berlin. Not a problem. That gives me a few extra months to play around with raising the funds. That's all. You just, you know, never beat yourself up. Every time you say, damn it, I wish I'd done that. Don't beat yourself up ever. It's a learning curve all along the way. Life is always a process like this. And that's why we're here, right? So, and you're meeting new people along the way who can teach you too. You know, I'm with this wonderful partner right now who's brilliant at so many things that I'm not. And I'm good at things that he's not. So, it's just magnificent. And that's
Great
Sorry.
advice for life, great advice for the rest of our lives and anything that we do, really, right?
Exactly. And just be nice. I know that sounds stupid, but my God, so many people aren't, and that's another exercise. You're going to hate me, but it's okay. I've got enough friends. I'm fine for life. So don't worry. So here's an exercise for everyone. And this one, when I had it done to me, that was many years ago. I think I was like in my late 20s, early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. And it's an exercise called occurring. So I want to give you 2 exercises to do, actually, 3 if I have time. So one exercise is, how are you occurring? I remember thinking, wow, I'm a leader, at the television network that I was working at, and I'm a leader, and I'm this, and I'm standing tall, and I went around and I had to do 5 people. The exercise is 5 people who but who will be honest with you, not like no sugarcoating. And do you know, all 5 people had something to say. I cried each time because I was so sure that I was already occurring to you, let's say, Elizabeth, as somebody who was, experienced and honest and smart and knew what they were doing. And people shared so many things that I didn't know that's how I was occurring. So it's a painful exercise, but I swear to God, it's life-changing. Another exercise that I would do is first of all, I just want to also share, you're a business person. I don't care, once again, if you're the makeup artist, if you're the producer, I don't care who you are in this industry. I don't care. You are the president and CEO. So what you want to do is act like a business, which is what I used to teach, was business, right? Years and years ago. In that business, there is this is from Landmark Education, what's called a conversation for accomplishment. And there's 4 categories. And in the industry, we reverse the categories, and that's why so many people fail. Okay. The categories are: number 1, relationship; number 2, the possibility of working together; number 3, the opportunity that could come out of working together; number 4, action. Here, it's the opposite. I have people, I sometimes I don't even want to go to those events anymore because, oh, Suzanne, I don't know you, but I heard to a friend of mine, you're producing a movie. Here's my headshot. Oh, I'm a composer. Here's my reel. Well, who are you? You know what I mean? It's like your resume means shit to me right now because I don't know who you are. So what I would recommend is you keep that in mind. Write those 4 things down, please. And no, number 1 is relationship. So how do I form that? It doesn't have to be like, oh, Elizabeth, when I was born in such and such a little town. And no, I'm not saying you have to start from there and bore the poor person to death. I'm just saying, what are some of those little highlights? Here's some things that we used to do in Flash Forward. Is I used to have them break into little groups, and then you would have to do what are the 4? Name 4 interesting, unusual, distinctive, unique, incredible, fascinating things about yourself. Because in our industry, what happens is, oh, I've had callbacks from these 5 directors, and they're pretty big names. Oh, I worked with that director. Oh, I've done this. Doesn't mean I'm so tired of people's resumes. We've forgotten. Do you think the guys and gals out, the dentists are out on the golf course on Friday afternoon when they take it off to go golfing? Do you think they're talking about, teeth? No, they're talking about their families. They're not talking work. They're talking about golf. They're talking about the new golf clubs. You know what I mean? It's like business people in every other industry except ours have relationships, and they're talking with people like, oh yes. So write down those things. What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are things that you love to do? What are your favorite movies? What are you be able to have some stuff in your back pocket and write down things that are unique about yourself. For me, for example, now, are you going to go into every meeting and say this? Not necessarily, but it's fun to have stuff in your back pocket. For me, Bobby, I went to a school, like the Little House on the Prairie schoolhouse, that kind of thing. And there was 4 of us in the same grade, 2 boys and 2 girls, Diane and Bobby and Andy and me. And Bobby, we had a barn with all the wood in it for the stove. And at recess, we were behind the barn, and he kissed me on the cheek. And I thought I was pregnant, and I didn't know how to tell my parents. I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks, and then of course I just forgot about it after that. But anyways, so for my husband, when he wanted a job in television, he took the class after 2.5 years of me begging him. And finally he said, so what we came up with for a goal for him for the month, it was a month-long class, was to meet 10, showrunners or supervising producers, somebody high up in the television world. And he loved sci-fi. And so he wrote them all down, talked to all the assistants and everything. He never made it past the third meeting because he ended up getting a job. He got a job probably faster than anybody else in that particular flash forward. So one of them was Howard Gordon from the X-Files, the big guy at the X-Files. And Jim, my husband, James, was brought up over a funeral home. His dad was a funeral home director. So when he went in, he had written down his 4 little things. Not that you're going to walk in and say, oh, by the way, Bobby kissed me on the cheek and I thought I was pregnant, or da, da, da. No, you just stuff for your back pocket, or stuff that you might see that they have on the wall, or an award they won that it's like, oh my God, like being present. And so he went in and he was just said, before we start to chat, first of all, you acknowledge the person. That's number one. Authentic acknowledgement. Authentic comes before everything. That word is so important. So you say, so you do the acknowledgement, which he did because he loved the X-Files. And then he said to Howard, he said, one thing you should know about me before we talk about me as a writer is that my dad was a funeral home director and I lived upstairs. We lived upstairs from the funeral home. So not only do I think I could write for the X-Files, I think maybe I am the X-File, like this. And Howard laughed, like bent over laughing, broke the ice, started chatting, and
nice.
And then his next meeting was with Highlander TV series, so he ended up doing that one. But and he was there, and that's the rest is history. He's been going straight for 30 years or so. But anyway, so there's those kinds of things that you want to kind of keep in mind. No idea if I answered the question or not, but that was the exercise. Was there a third one? No, the occurring, that one.
No, oh, sorry, what was that?
I think it was that. I think I mentioned the 3 things that I wanted to mention for your answer.
Yeah, we talked a lot about, in that particular last question, about challenges you might face leading up to production. But what can you say about once production begins? Because we know that when production begins, there's inevitably a fire that's going to happen someplace. Something's going to go wrong.
My God.
How do you handle those situations, the unexpected delays, budget issues, what have you?
Okay, I'll tell you a wee story. I was doing a movie it was 3 different countries, 3 countries. So I had people from Canada, Spain, the UK, and I think many, obviously multiple languages. And we were shooting in a very, 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 very English town in Canada. And so there was conflicts. It was so bad. My line producer was female. She was lovely. My producer was, my director was not, like he was, they hated each other. It was at the end of week 1, by Thursday, I knew it was a 6-week shoot. And I thought it was, and big names too, actors, which were easy. They were wonderful. And the 6-week shoot. And I thought, we're not going to make it to Friday we'll make it, but people will be killed. You know what I mean? Like they're going to kill each other. Nobody was talking to anybody. Nobody was getting along with anybody. Clashes like you cannot even imagine. Clash. So I, by myself, because Kate's American and this was a co-production, so she wasn't allowed on set except for pre-production. So it's just me, and my partners were in the UK, just me. So I thought, okay, I have to make an executive decision here. So I decided to have the wrap party at the end of week 1 of the 6-week shoot.
The what party?
The wrap party, the one you have at the end of your shoot, the wrap party where you all get together, the crew and the cast get together to celebrate. You do it at the end of every movie or whatever, or series. And this one, I said, I looked to see what the budget was. So I rented a club. We're already musical. Everybody's musical. So we're good for that. So we picked the band, got together from the crew, right? They all had their guitars and, fiddles and all the rest of it. And so, so I said to everybody else, let's just go to dinner, like all the, the actors. Let's go to dinner, and not go. Like, don't go till like midnight. I booked it from 9 to 4 in the morning. A club, and I walked in, and so, so one of the actors and I decided it was midnight. Let's go in, see what's going on, because is there going to be bodies all over the floor from killing each other? So we walked in, and our band was playing, Stairway to Heaven or whatever, probably for the 20,000th time. And I looked around and people were standing at the bar. I love you, man. I love you, man. Love you, man. You know, like everybody was like hugging each other. My director and my line producer, you know, the female and the guy, waltzing to Stairway to Heaven, waltzing.
Can you waltz to Stairway to Heaven?
I guess who knows? I mean, the alcohol. I mean, it was no one was allowed to drive, but it was as much alcohol as I just thought if I can get everybody drunk, I've done my job, you know, because they just needed to just let go and realize these are all people. We're all here for the same reason, to make a great movie. So let's just do it. So they came up to me. A couple of them came up after, because I said, I'm leaving, you guys, because they said, we're going to breakfast. They went beyond 4 o'clock. Trust me. Everybody then went to breakfast at somebody's house. But they came to me before I left, because I left. I didn't want to be there for too long. You know, I didn't want to spoil anything. So they said, I know there's some lumber left over from the shoot. I know it's probably worth a few thousand, but could we have it? And I said, okay. He said, could you tell me why? And they said, no, we want to surprise you on Monday morning. Because we were 11 to 11 in the morning, 11 at night. So I walked in on Monday morning, and what they had built over the week, over that 2 days, unbelievable. And a big sign, the Grip A Go-Go Lounge. Is that the best thing I've ever heard? The Grip A Go-Go Lounge. Guitars, keyboard, cellos. I mean, all their stuff was there. Everybody got together and had their stuff. Lots and lots of violins and everything, and so, or fiddles as we call them at home. And anyways, it was so fun. And I said to them, okay, here's the deal. Because they said to me, we built this. We'd like to have a party from 11 to 1 at the end of the night at 11 o'clock, 11 to 1. And I said, on one condition, that if one person, cast or crew, is 1 minute late for work, all the bets are off. And they said, we won't even be late. Do you know that's been the best crew I have ever worked with to this day? Unbelievable.
Maybe that is leading into the next question, which was, can you tell us about a recent production where your role made the biggest impact? Was that it?
That was one of the ones for sure, because I remember even being scared myself, but I knew that I had to trust my gut instinct as a producer. That's the other main thing. The gut instinct is there, like it's there. Follow it. Is there another? Just a second. I don't know. I mean, I think Time Toys was a lot of fun because I don't have children. I'm not particularly fond of them, you know, until they hit a certain age. Even my nieces and nephews weren't really allowed until they were 12, 13 to come visit. Isn't that terrible? I'm terrible. Yeah, they're starting to see the real me now. Right? Anyways, so, but it was so fun because it was all these kids, you know, and I just had so much fun that I think, and the parents, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed doing that. I don't know if it was an impact, but it was an impact on me. Let me just see. What was anything difficult recently? Oh, yes, there was one that was kind of difficult because we didn't have the money that we were told that was there. Now that's my fault because I should have asked to see the bank statement, because this person seemed like a very honest person and I trusted. I'm over trusting, by the way. So that's another thing, that every time I try to blame somebody, I can't. Isn't that the shits? It's like, it's always coming back to me. I don't care what it is. It's always coming back to me that it's my fault. And what do I need to do to correct it? Not my fault, like, oh, beat myself up. No, my fault, like pat myself on the back. Great, another learning curve. Yippee, yay, today, another learning curve. And so that's what, that was, I think, one of the things on the last film that's like, you've got to check to make sure, yes, you're going to production. Is that amount of money truly in the bank? As the producer, I should have asked that question instead of just trusting. So I don't know which movie. It was one in the past 5 years for sure. But anyway, so that there's things like that sometimes we have to say, more awake to, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we get so involved in like people used to cry in my classes, in the film producing classes, and get mad at me because, well, Suzanne, that's my friend, and and that's my sister who did that, and I'm going to be on set. And I said, I don't care if it's God himself, like you get to be the person that says what. So you're the producer, you're responsible that this movie make money to pay back the investors. That's one of your yes, you want to make a good movie, but it's also a business. It's business. If you read the first chapter of my book, you've got to wear both hats simultaneously, and people argue with me on that all the time. They get too emotional, and when you get so emotionally wrapped up in it that you're forgetting the bigger picture, pardon the pun, that you're responsible for these investors. It's a business. So that's why I keep saying, you are the president and CEO, no matter who you are on set. If you're I don't know anybody, but especially the producer has got to get that in their bones. They've got to get it.
Well, why don't we talk about, too, another position on set, the director. What are you really listening for when you're interviewing that director up front? What are you looking for in early conversations?
I'm looking for confidence, for sure, okay, because I've made a couple of mistakes early on. So that's an important part for that confidence, their vision, obviously. In one case, I sat down with lunch for a director, and their vision was so the opposite of what the script was. It scared me. It actually scared me. And I thought, okay, well, thank you very much, or whatever. And so I think I want to find out more about them. Their passion, is the passion there? Is the confidence there? Have they done it before? If they haven't directed before, are they willing to have, like when Kate wanted to direct, my film partner at the time, she wrote and wanted to direct her first film. So we made sure that our DP was so experienced. He had directed a whole bunch of films as well and won a ton of awards. So he was there right with her. He's her DP, but yet he's also a director. So he was kind of guiding her. And then on the next film, the writer wanted to do he was a first-time director. So Kate was with him. You know what I mean? So she was guiding him. So as long as that person is open, if they're not open early on, then I would probably move on. If they're not willing to realize that it takes a village, kind of thing, that it's, yes, of course, their vision is important, but if they're not willing to realize that it's a collaborative, kind of thing, that we're in this as a team, and it's about a conversation of, can we afford that? Can we afford this? One of the directors one time, I had to go out and actually raise some money because he refused to listen to me. And I showed up one morning and there was a crane that I could not afford. And there was a song that I could not afford. The whole thing came to around $30,000. And I didn't have it. I had to go out and raise that extra money to cover those two costs. And call to say, we're desperate at the moment and we need to put that back in the budget. So there's sometimes with directors, and that person happened to be very insecure because he had done a lot of television but not features. So I think you've got to watch for that. I'm better at that now, much better at kind of seeing those little red flags pop up, I have to say. But that's something to be aware of too, that who is that person, that gal or girl, are they passionate? Are they confident? Even if it's kind of the first time, are they willing to have another director beside them on set? Are they willing to share maybe even a credit, with that person or whatever? Like, see how open they are. You would not believe how many people have never, ever, ever gotten their movies made because they are so determined to have it their way, and you've got to be thinking outside the box all the time. It's a collaborative thing. I mean, it truly does. Now it's not one village. Remember years ago, you'd watch a movie from the 40s. We still do. My husband and I love the 30s and 40s movies. And there's one producer. My God, somebody counted up one the other day, and there was something like 24 producers on the credit.
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
That's the other thing too, though, is be careful who you can't give away producer credits. It's not just a Producers Guild thing. It's really dangerous. People don't realize the good and the bad. You could get a lawsuit afterwards for somebody saying that script was similar to mine, right? And which we've had happen before, Kate and I, in the early days, and that person would be part of the lawsuit. So you may think, oh, I'm going to get that producer credit, whatever, I'm an actor and I'm actually getting it. It's not worth it because, they have to earn it, first of all, from a Producers Guild point of view. And secondly, you got to take the bad with the good.
Right. So beyond talent and vision, what makes you confident someone is the right fit? It's kind of a similar question as Brian's, but How do you know someone's the right fit?
Are you talking about directors again? Or
Just anybody that you are hiring, really.
yeah, and sometimes you don't. I mean, I don't like firing people. I might have done it once. My line producer has done it more than once on a couple of movies from the crew. So I mean, I really like to. I'm pretty good now with people because I've taught probably at least 15,000. I think we ended up when I stopped, doing a lot of the teaching years ago. So I kind of have a pretty good sense of people's commitments and their commitment also to alacrity, like moving things on, if it's a low budget, especially, and 100% responsibility. I try to get a sense of who they are from what other aspects of who they are, not just in the film industry. That's why creating relationships is so important, because you already know a little bit about that person, that it's like, yes, they are committed, or maybe they've done similar genres. And let's say you're doing a horror film and they are a maniac for horror film. Like they would put their heart and soul into it if you paid them $1. I remember my first couple of crews not the first couple, but when we started doing some horror films at the 200,000, when SAG opened that up for all of us in the end of 2004. It was wonderful, and the Directors Guild did as well, to bring back movies to shoot in America, on American soil. And the government created Section 181 for us, which was amazing, which meant that you Brian, if you had given me, bought a couple of shares in some of those lower budget films, you would have gotten 100% tax write-off depending on your category of, accredited investor.
That's
And
great.
so it all happened at the same time as the UK shut down, the fall of 2004 in America. So we've been kind of blessed since. I don't know if it's still in existence. It ended at Christmas, this past year, 2025. So I'm not sure if it's in existence right now or not. I'll have to check. But anyways, sorry, what was the question again? Where was I going with that one, with the Section 181?
Just how do you know someone's the right fit?
Yeah. Got it. So with those, like, for example, it was early on, we hired these wonderful crews. A lot of them were first timers. That's what was so fun about doing SAG Ultra Lows and SAG Modified, is people were coming in. They might have been an assistant casting director, but now they got a casting director title because we can only afford the assistant money. Right. So, but the credit was more important to the money. So a lot of these people were working for the credits, for being with people, for being trained. So they were passionate, really, really, really passionate. And I remember one time we had to go overtime, like by 2 hours, 14 hours instead of 12. And I called my husband and I said, James, could you do up a poster of Candy Stripers? Because we had already done a little poster and run them up to set, which was over in like the Northridge area. So he did. And I went around, I passed out like 60 posters to everybody, little, just this size, just like, 8.5 by 11. And I swear to God, people started to cry. It probably the whole thing cost $40 plus gas, for him to drive up to Northridge, right? But the ink cost $40. And people, I might have well given them $1 million. I mean, they literally, because I said, guys, we're going to go over by 2 hours. By 2 hours, I just bought you a little gift, to say thank you. Oh, Suzanne, you didn't have to do that. But, oh my God, this is amazing. Can we have 10 minutes off or 15 minutes off? And I said, sure, why? And they said, we want to get everybody's signatures. And they had a ball with it. Just had a ball with it. So I think that's important. And the other thing too is make sure in your budgets as a producer, put treats in there, even if it's just ice cream on a hot day. Like just do the ice cream, the Chinese truck, the coffee truck one night. Yes, it was $500, but Kate and I put it in that little tiny budget because there was a treat. Like you've got to throw little treats in like that, just like for your investors. If you buy so many shares, Brian, you're going to get an executive producer credit, kind of thing. Like throw in those wonderful you've got to be thinking like that all the time. Abundance all the time.
Yeah, happy crew goes a long way. It's fact. They talk about that with catering too. You feed them well, they're going to be very happy, as opposed to the opposite. Can you speak a little bit to your experience of working with talent agents to cast actors for your productions?
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. I've had pretty darn good luck, I have to say, honestly. I mean, we have, except for a couple of them, I'm not going to say who, but there was one guy on one of the movies that I got to tell you, he was a centimeter away from losing the job. And he wanted so bad. And my God, he was good. Oh my God. But if I had to deal with his agent anymore, after that day, he was done. I went in to tell the director, he's wanting this, he's wanting this, he's wanting this, he's wanting this. And he's not even a name. He just happened to be a goddamn good actor. And the director said, done, moving on. I've already picked the next person. I said, no, just give me one more phone call, please, just one more day. And I think I can turn things around. And then I did. I had to tell the truth. We're not going to use him. And that's when they acquiesced and said, okay, let's forget those extra perks, because some of them we just couldn't use except for the main stars. So there's times like that where I, where you just have to make, those kinds of decisions. And there's another one where I'm not going to name the actor. I wanted that particular actor. We all did. I talked to the agent, and after one phone call, I had to take a shower. Then I took him off the list. And that is a wonderful Canadian actor. I loved him. His agent here was so disgusting, I don't know what else to say, that we took that person off the list, and he'll never know who he is. That was a great opportunity on one of those early bigger budget, films. And then there was another one as well. There was another one. She and I, we became like really close afterwards, but I only had a certain amount of money. And she said, but my client is worth something like 6 times. And she was right. He was worth 6 times that, but he wanted to do the movie. And I knew it. She would literally scream at me for about 6 months, actually. It took about 6 months, and it was hard. It was stressful, but I knew that he was committed to the movie. So no matter what she said, he wasn't going to leave me. And then afterwards, when we all came home, he said to her it was one of the best experiences ever, and he loved it. And I spoiled him like crazy. And she must have hugged me. I never counted, but I would say at least 20 times when I went into her office afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah, she said, I'm so sorry for putting you through that for those 6 months. But
Oh, man. So
anyways,
speaking of actors, you've worked with some legendary ones. Let's list a few here. Christopher Walken, Naomi Watts, James Caan, Susan Sarandon, all my favorites. Peter Fonda. Is there a moment, funny, surprising, that stands out? Unexpected? Anything that stands out?
Oh, so many. Jimmy Caan was so wonderful. Such a delight. We were shooting at home in New Brunswick, and he came up and he said, Suzanne, are people going to be like lined up on the sidewalk or anything? And I laughed. That's all I got to Jimmy. I said, nobody cares. Go and have your cigarette. Nobody cares, right? Like, no lineups. I had another actor tell me that one time too. They're going to be lineups, and we were in this God knows what little tiny town, and I said, trust me, nobody cares. Like when you're not in Hollywood, it's just hilarious. But he was a sweetheart. He sat at a different table. You know how sometimes the bigger name actors will kind of get their food first and sit over with the other actors or with the producer, for example. No, he chose a different crew picnic table every single day. Every day. 5 weeks we were on set. And he knew everybody. Like the crew to him was as important as anybody else. He was just a delight. With Naomi, Chris was fun too. Chris takes his role very seriously. When he came out of the trailer the first morning, he's an undertaker. I don't know if you saw the movie Undertaking Betty. I think everybody should watch it. It's just one of those, we all need a good laugh right now. And that's one of the ones where you have a good laugh. His hair was like hilarious, beyond hilarious. And he walked out and I was hysterical. I just started laughing. And he says, Suzanne, why are you laughing at me? And I said, Chris, your hair. He said, what's wrong with that? I'm a funeral home director. What's your problem? Like, so he took it so serious. I realized that was day one that I realized, oh my God, Suzanne, with Chris, he is into that role, like from day one. He's not a method actor, but he is into that role. And then the other one would be Naomi. They're all, Brenda Blethyn and I and Kate went to brunch every Sunday and ordered 2 bottles of champagne because they worked 6.5 days. You know, that 6-week shoot was 6-day weeks. And because it was a lot of dancing in the movie, we hired the guy who had just done Billy Elliot, the choreographer, and then he came to work with us. Alfred Molina and Brenda Blethyn had to dance a lot in the film. And they worked Sunday mornings. So they had a half a day off for that whole film every week. That's crazy. So Kate and I would treat Brenda every single Sunday for brunch. We would go to brunch. But with Naomi, what happened there, oh my God, I just love her so much. She was, 9/11 had we were the first film. I was with one other person actually on the plane on the British Airways on the way to Cardiff, to England, to the UK. And it was very scary. We started literally about 3 weeks after. I think we were the first film to shoot and that sort of thing. So it was very scary for people. And what happened, it was on my birthday, October 7th, we had the table read with everybody, but Naomi didn't start till the day after, sort of thing, right? Because we were then going to be starting on Monday. And the table read was on Sunday afternoon. Kate and I went home and of course bottle of wine up, at the place in Cardiff. And Naomi called. And she said, Suzanne, the American government just declared war. And this would have been on around the 7th or 8th or whatever of that year, 21. And she said, I'm scared. I'm really scared. I'm in my hotel room and I'm scared and I don't think I can get on the plane. And I said, girlfriend, Kate and I are here in Wales and there ain't nothing else here except a shitload of sheep. And that's it. When you come over, you're going to be in the safest place in the world. It's just Kate and I and a whole lot of sheep. Nobody wants to bomb anything here, really, in Wales. And she started to laugh. And she said, okay. And I said, do you want me to stay with you? And she said, yes. So I stayed with her while she packed down the elevator, in the car we had waiting outside, all the way to JFK and her wait at JFK. So I was with her for about 2 hours on the phone. And this was after I drank like a half a bottle of wine because this was our first, film, and we had just done our first table read with all the stars, right? And I thought, oh my God. And then we get up next morning. So she flies in because everyone else is, working on Monday, but she's just flying in that day. She comes to set at 9 o'clock, around 9:30, I think, because my sales agent went and picked her up at the airport. I think it was. I can't remember. Anyways, who brought her in. And she came to me and she hugged me. For like a giant hug, and she stepped back and she was still like almost in tears, and she said, Suzanne, and I said, yes, Naomi. And she said, I'm here to serve you today. And thank you for getting me through that kind of thing. Every day she'd come to set and she'd say, Suzanne, and I say, yes, Naomi, I'm here to serve you today. It was the most amazing thing. I ended up working with a DP years later from Australia, and he would start the day like that too. One of the most amazing DPs. So, I memean, these people are just so wonderful that sometimes we have no idea. To me, if I were an actor, I would be stressed like crazy. It's a funny role. She plays the town slut, kind of going out with the mayor. It's a hilarious role. And she was incredible. She'd go down to visit, I forget, her friend, Nicole Kidman was shooting in London at the time. And I said, make sure you keep all your train receipts, so at the end I can give you a check before you head home or head to Japan. I think she was going to shoot something with Spielberg at the time. And she said, okay. She hands them to me in their economy class. And I said, Naomi, I told you to do, whatever business class or whatever on the train. Oh no, Suzanne, I didn't want to take advantage. I mean, is that amazing? So we truly don't know. We kind of think, oh my God, these people are up there and they're going to be this way. They're going to, we make up crazy shit in our head, right? They're going to be arrogant. They're going to be this. I have yet to come across it. And I'm on my 15th film right now. Like right now, actually, I'm doing like 3 this year. There's the 2 of them got funded and the other one's about to be funded because we're getting an A-list director on board. And it's like, I don't think we realize these are just real people that are just as scared as we are, just as insecure as we can be at different times during the set, just as wonderful as we all are too. It's like, I kind of got that. I did Wallace Wattles class last year, one of my favorite books from the early part of the last century, 1909 it was written. And it's really about getting that we really are God's masterpiece. And I didn't get that because I was always making myself wrong for this or that, like we tend to do as humans. Our little part of that brain is kind of always, making us aware of what we don't know and how incompetent we are, and all those crazy things that our brain does to us, especially in the middle of the night. And what I realized from that class is I know I'm God's masterpiece. And if I am, so are we all. And that's what it says. And I guess it says that in the Bible. I'm not used to the Bible, but my friends that are say, no, that's in the Bible. Like, we truly are that. And when you realize that, we're all there. We're at different levels, maybe, but you just have to fall in love with people, sometimes over and over again. Sometimes you might have somebody who's not who you want to, be with, but because they're serving that wonderful purpose, it's like, okay, what are the good things I can find? The minute that I start to dislike somebody, I say, Suzanne, shut the hell up. What are those good points? Because you're going to be around that person for 3 months. What are the good things? And focus on that. And then what happens is all those good things come to light because you've already made that decision. It's kind of like pre-paving something. It's amazing. So
let's transition a little bit into talking about pitching. When someone pitches you a project for the first time, what matters most to you? Is it the concept? Is it the writer themselves? Marketing position? What matters most?
I think, because what I used to teach, and that's how I listen today, is how I used to teach, is the first thing would be, first of all, how something's occurring. If they call me and haven't done their research, for example, they're calling and saying, oh, I heard you like horror films. I'm sick of horror films. I'm done that, been that, done that. I'm done. I'm working. I'd rather do, I don't know, whatever else, action movie. I love action. I love sci-fi, I love romantic comedy, stuff like that. So for me, it's kind of like, really? You didn't even look at my website? I don't say that to the person, but I'm thinking, really? Like, you didn't find out anything about me at all? Like, sometimes people call and they have no idea what I've done. Like, none. They don't know all this, just someone told them to call because I might be looking for something. So first of all, it's always the occurring. The occurring is the most important thing. Even when an actor comes in the room, I know right away. I'll tell you right away that person is right or wrong, honestly, just from how they're occurring. That's important. The next thing is the log line. And I'm going to read you very quickly. What's his name? Here he is. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. He wrote Save the Cat, Blake. And he said, a log line is like the cover of a book. A good one makes you want to open it right now to find out what's inside. And if you don't have a good log line, and writers are the worst at this, and what they need to do is they need to then get help with that. Do your log line. First of all, go on my site, because I've written a whole thing about all that on the blogs. Go on the site, find out, run it by 10 friends. Is the protagonist in there? Are you mentioning it? Is it clear, concise, compelling? Am I going to get excited? Do I want to hear more? Because if I don't like your log line, I've had people send me log lines, and now I have to stop them and say, listen, just tell me in 2 sentences, what's this movie about? And it's never the log line. It's never the log line. Well, it's about, my life when I was a little girl and this happened to me. Oh my God, if you had started with that, I would have been hooked already. Then talk about such and such, like this one guy I was teaching at the Learning Annex one time. I taught pitching for years at the Learning Annex in Santa Monica. And this one guy got up to share about his baseball movie. And I swear to God, everybody was snoring. It was just like put us to sleep. You know what I mean? He was a great sleeping pill. And finally I had to stop him partway through the pitch. And I said, listen, look around. Like, people are leaning back in their chairs. They're falling asleep here. I said, what the hell is it about baseball? And he said, oh, Suzanne, he said, I have every baseball card. I started when I was like 4 years old collecting. My trunk is filled with every baseball card that was ever made. And then he started sharing about the baseball games that he would go. All of a sudden, everybody was sitting up in their seats. I did that to one of my students one time. She was putting us to sleep. She was doing that, the resume list again. She was a set designer. And went, oh, I worked with so-and-so, worked with so. I said, I don't care. There's 150 people in the room, and they don't care. This was in Toronto at a big women film thing that I was teaching. And she said, and I said, listen, I said, just tell me why. She said, why what? I said, why? What is it about being a set designer that gets you up in the morning? What turns you on that you want to be? Oh my God, guys, I'm actually getting goosebumps just thinking about it. She's on stage. I would pull people and put them on stage. She became 15 years younger, like that. I mean, it was almost unrecognizable. It was shocking to watch. I've seen it many times now over the years. Because she went back to her love and her passion. She said, "Oh my God, Suzanne, I remember I was 5 years old and I loved coloring. And I used to color. And I would color, I'd lie on the floor with all my crayons and my coloring book in front of the picture window in my house when I was little, in our house." And she said, and I was painting one morning and the sun came around and hit my, I'm gonna cry, hit my coloring book in such a way that all the colors jumped off the page and danced before my eyes. I love color and light more than anybody in the world. I want you, right? As a producer, everybody in the room is now on the edge of their seat. They're almost in tears. Don't you want to work with her right now? Then I'll say, what's your resume? You know what I mean? But for now, I'm already wanting to work with you. Your passion is just glowing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too about pitching is you can't, to know about it, is that you can't, you'll always lose by not pitching, but you'll never ever lose, even if it's a bad pitch. You know what I mean? So, and I sometimes when somebody says, "Oh, Suzanne, I saw that you were working on such and such. Tell me about it." And I'm going, "Oh my God, I didn't prepare a pitch." And they'll say, "That's okay, whatever." And then of course I'll mess it up and they'll go, "God, send the script." So sometimes just your love of it, sometimes can make up for it, like with her in that particular case. So I think that's one of the things with pitching. The other thing about pitching is to know that your log line is 80% of your sale. And that's what was also, I think, in this book too. It's 80%, and that's what we used to teach. It's 80%. It has them say, "Whoa, you're kidding me." "Oh my God." Like one guy, I think I wrote it down. Don't know if I wrote it down or not. One of my students, probably never find it now. It was so on. Here it is. Holy shit. This was way back. I remember we're at UCLA. I was teaching there. It was a big class. And I remember he stood up and started sharing. And once again, putting everybody to sleep. It was about espionage and stuff. It was obviously going to be a good script, but he wasn't doing a great job. And then I stopped him. And I said, "Why, once again, what is it about that genre that drew you to that? Listen to this guy." And he started sharing. Everybody in the room was like, "What the fuck?" He was not doing a great job and writing down. So he was putting everyone to sleep, kind of like the baseball guy. So when I asked him why he wanted to write this particular script, he just lit up and told us that he had studied a rare martial art specializing in infiltration, espionage, and assassination since he was 5 years old. Everybody went, "What the hell?" First of all, we were a little scared, obviously. In the room, who is this guy? But all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, here, tell me more. Like so many people will start off a pitch, and here it ends up it's being their about their life, and or something that they're so passionate about, and they leave that part out,
Right.
That's I think that answer. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else.
What I'm hearing is
Yeah,
like passion, really.
that went above and beyond.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because I wanted to bring in there, the reason I put the set designer in, because sometimes it's not the script. Sometimes it's you. You're the one providing a service. So who is the essence of you? What is the essence
Right.
of who you are? And what are you bringing to the party?
Yeah.
That's why I love those things about write down your highlights. I have in Flash Forward class years ago, there was a page for the highlights of your personal life and the highlights of your career life, because all we tend to talk about is the career. And I made people do their pitches so they're intertwined, get that personal stuff in there. So we're learning something. That's how you're going to be remembered.
Right.
A million people they're going to be pitching that week, right? Good to them. But you want to be the one that stands out. You want to be remembered.
What is one line or phrase that immediately gives you pause when you hear a pitch?
Gives me pause in a good way or a bad way?
Either one. Like, what's a good line or what's a bad line?
Okay. This is about a horse who? No, I want to know, the horse is not the protagonist. So a lot of times people put something else in there as the protagonist. And in this case, it wasn't the horse. It was the woman who owned the ranch where the horses
Mhm.
were. But it was what brought her and her neighbor, her cute neighbor, together, kind of thing. Christmas movie. Um, and I remember thinking, no, this is not about the horse. So don't confuse. You got to be, clear, concise. And so make sure your antagonist is in there, your protagonist is in there. So don't start with the antagonist, start with the protagonist and make it
Gotcha.
crystal clear. What I used to force people to do, and this is terrible, in Flash Forward, they had to make it one sentence, even though it's really probably 2 or 3 when you're sharing with somebody. But I said, no, you're in the elevator with Spielberg. Holy shit, you got 3 floors to go. Like, what's one line you could give him? So sometimes I'll force them so that they get that conciseness. This is a woman, who, I'm trying to think of, I don't have any in front of me, but this is about a woman who found out her husband was cheating on her, and she decided to meet, I'm doing this bad, but anyways, meet the other person, and then they got into cahoots to try to ruin his life, or what I can't remember. Or what was the other one? 3 men. Yes, 3. What was the one about the baby? Remember with
3 men and a baby.
3 men and a baby kind of thing, that this woman comes to the door and knocks on the door and says, hi, I've just had a baby and it's yours, or whatever, and that was another one too. That was one with, I think, Treat Williams back then, that Heidi did something about,
Right.
it was like a surprise. So sometimes and then there's a high concept, like, Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger as twins. One of my students had one time that sold for $450,000. Just that's all they had was the killer, what I call a killer log line, but in this case it was a killer log. We didn't even have to do the log line because it was a high concept, and it was what was it? Oh shit, Swiss Family Rubenstein. The lineup of people at the agent's office. First of all, we got him an agent, and then the lineup. I think it was Bette Midler who ended up winning. Bought the project at the time. Don't know if it ever got made, sort of thing. So, yeah. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I would look for. Is
All right.
am I crystal clear about what's going on there? Do I have to ask a lot of questions? That's the other thing, is I was a teacher or instructor for all those years, but I would say to people, don't let me be the one to drag it out of you. If you're in that production, if you're in that room with that person, or on a Zoom or on the phone, don't let them drag it out of you. You have all your ducks in a row before you get on that phone. And if that person, let's say, Brian, I'm pitching to you, but it was through Elizabeth that I got your name. I want to acknowledge that at the beginning. And Elizabeth, I would check with you, by the way, before I call. Can I use your name, Elizabeth? Because I'm going to be calling Brian, the vice president over at such and such, right? And you say, yes, Suzanne, go ahead, because I've read your stuff before and I love it. Great. So then I would call and I say, and so that's going to kind of get you, that's going to start to build. He already has the confidence in me, but now I have to follow through. And then the other things about pitching too, and log lines and stories and everything, is also to keep the stories straight. Heidi said she was pitching one time, my partner back then, my business partner actually, in Flash Forward. She said she was pitching. She was so scared. She had written it up and she was like this here pitching, the treatment almost. And she heard a sound and she looked up and he was snoring. She had actually put him to sleep. And so remember, there's somebody else in the room, somebody else on the Zoom, because I know you're nervous. And if you're nervous, then tell them. Say, you know what, guys, as much as I practice this thing, oh my God, I still think I'm terrible at it, even though it's something I love. So just know I'm a little nervous right now. So please be patient with me, because they're nervous too when they're doing their thing. Everybody's been on both sides of the table.
All right. So we have a question from the audience. Can you tell us the secret of TV pitching?
Oh
What
my
helped
God. Well, I got to tell you, the learning curve I went through this fall, I did have some stress. I have to say, it was a hell of a learning curve. Those two have nothing to do with each other. I've got to tell you, I could do a film in my sleep. I could produce a film in my sleep. I swear. Television, it is truly apples and oranges. I had to go through, well, I had to learn how to do an entire schedule from pre-production all the way to the end, the writer's room, the breakdown of the stories, everything. I've done so much work on it. It's incredible. I learned so much. It's amazing. We're getting the cash flow done right now, which I've done lots of time on a feature, but never on a series. So I'm getting lots of help from people. Once again, I call people and ask for favors too. The difference between it is knowing, first of all, like I didn't know that it is truly apples and oranges. It's like entering a new world, a new planet. Don't know anything. I don't know anything. And except I've watched my husband, thank God he's been in this for 30 years. So he's helped a lot. But just to know that first, is it is new. And when it comes to the pitching, that part was just as easy because I think the pitching part is the same as a feature. You know, you're telling your story of what the pilot is about, you know. And so I think that part was a little easier for me because I've sort of mastered that over all these years. I'm still nervous, just like everybody else. I'm still nervous after all these years, 27 years, and I'm still nervous. But I knew the story. I loved the story. It takes place in a high school. It's phenomenal. I don't want to say too much because it's very different from anything you've ever seen before. And I think that caught the attention of this person. Also, it was a referral. You know, I got to meet him through a friend of mine. And so he had been many years in the television industry and now was kind of moving into a different aspect of it where they were actually starting to acquire pilots. And get the funding. He did all the funding and everything. They did the funding for it, but I've done all the other stuff. My partner and I, Rob and I, and so I think it's the same, Tracy. I think it's really that the pitching part would be pretty much the same, but you'd also have to have obviously ideas. Your writer would have to give you, who wrote that pilot for you or is about to write the pilot. He'd have to give you, or she'd have to give you, obviously, how the year is going to, unfold. You know, how those 8 to 10 to 12 episodes will unfold. How season 2, a little bit about season 2, and a little bit about season 3 as well. Okay,
that's
so
great advice.
Yeah, you really do need to have that. And once again, get a mentor. You know, get a mentor, somebody who's been there, done that before. You know, that's why God gave us 8 billion people, is because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've been doing film and television now for, oh my God, certainly 140 years or something. I mean, it all started in the 1880s or whatever. Television maybe after that, 40 years after, 50 years after. But I mean, it's you never have to invent the wheel. That's why the first thing you do is your research and get a couple of mentors. First thing.
Would you say that when it comes to pitching, it would be better to pitch one project really well or to pitch several projects all at once?
Oh my God, that's so good. I really screwed up one time. I had heard that this company was looking for thrillers, lower budget thrillers. This was way back when there was no digital. This was with film. So budgets were about the 1.8 million to 2.2 back then for thrillers. For anything, would have to start there. And I called this guy on a referral. Okay, I got right to the president, and they had a deal at a studio, and it was through a referral, a close friend. I don't know if we stayed friends or not, but here's the thing. So I called. I didn't do the research because I thought I had a referral. That's enough. I don't have to do the research. You know, so I was being a little arrogant. This was way early, right in the early stages of pitching, 98, 99. And so I called and I said, and they put me right through, because I told the assistant, I'm calling on behalf of so-and-so because she's had this referral. So I'm on the phone with the president. And I said, so, I know you guys are looking for thrillers. And he started to scream, not nicely. I mean, scream at a loud voice. Thrillers, goddamn thriller. I've done enough damn thrillers. I never want to see another thriller as long as I live. He's literally let it out. And then I froze. So I couldn't say, well, yes, I've got what are you looking for? And then have back pocket, getting back to Brian's question. Yes, I have a romantic comedy. Yes, I have an action. Yes, I have a sci-fi. No, I froze. And I'm sorry. And then he hung up. And that was it. Mm-hmm. And I never and I had to call my friend and apologize and everything that I had not done my research. So that research I've got is like in my pitches, in my not pitches, sorry guys, in the thing on pitching online. I think it's probably like number one or two is like research, and the tips that I give you. And then what was the other aspect of that that you asked about? Just a second.
Oh, I was just asking if it was better to pitch one really well or pitch several. Okay.
So the answer is yes. I would get a few because you never know, and sometimes you never know. Like I was speaking with one of the gals I'm not going to say the company because they're being taken over. This was last week. We had our big meeting last week, and they've all become friends. We've all kind of grown. I know a lot of heads of development at a lot of companies because we've grown up together. That's the other thing is you grow up together, right? When you start relationships early on. And and I have phenomenal relationships. And she said, Suzanne, there's nothing I can listen to, but I had they did television. So I had all my 7 log lines of my pilots ready, all 7. Some of them were comedy, some were romance, some were sci-fi, some were drama, some were dark drama. Like, I had them all in front of me. But then she said, we're being taken over in 2 weeks. Send me your list and then call me back in about a month. So we're going to set up our and so I'll be chatting with her in a while. And they're taking over quite a few. This big company is buying quite a few of those particular types of companies. So that I would definitely have more stuff, more things in my back pocket. Because just with me, people call me all the time. Oh, I hear you're looking for horror. No, I finished horror back in, I don't know, 2009 or 8 or something, right? A long time ago. And then I did a family film, then I did a drama, then I did a thriller, then I did a beautiful drama last year. Beautiful. Which is coming out soon, by the way. So, I mean, and then the next one I'm doing is John Lennon. It's a beautiful John Lennon film, 1965. It's kind of a coming of age story for John Lennon and at 25 and a little boy at 16. It's a absolutely beautiful family film. And then I'm doing another one, which is with director Oz Scott, one of my, how you have your list of people you want to work with. And so he's directing that one. Another one that's a beautiful, beautiful kind of family, but thriller at the same time. So, you've some people, I have a variety. So when I'm on the phone and that person says, no, Suzanne, we're not looking for romantic comedies right now. We're looking for romantic dramas. Oh, okay, good. So do I have a couple of romantic dramas on here? Well, oh my gosh, so let me pitch this one here. I do actually happen to have one. Do you have a minute to hear the log line? Oh, yes, of course. You're looking for that. Great. So just be flexible in that way. And yes, more than 3. Not that you want to pitch them. The first one might be enough. If they say, yes, send me the first one, maybe not muddy the waters,
Right. So what turns working relationship into a long-term creative partnership?
Oh, that's good. Well, I wish I had done more of it. Remember I talked about my map of relationships before? If you were in my class back then, you know what your homework was for the first 2 weeks? First of all, that was pre-homework, so it's already done. You got to class with it, right? It could be tiny. You might have moved here. It could be big. Your job was to call everybody on that list and rekindle that relationship. And one person, Jim Pasternak, oh my God, I love him so much. Jim Pasternak said, I can't, Suzanne, there's one person on there I can't. We had a big argument 5 years ago. I can't do that. I said, no, I'm not asking you, sweetheart. You know what I mean? You're in a class right now. You've signed on that you would do your homework. Part of the homework is to call everybody on that list. And so he called the person, and the person said, and he said, I apologize again for that argument. And the guy said, what argument? I don't remember an argument. So he had stayed away from that person for 5 years. So do your map of relationships, stay in touch with those people, even if it's a Christmas card, or like Kate and I used to send our Hanukkah or Christmas cards or whatever to everybody on our list. I mean, that's the point of it. And who is it specifically? If you're looking at doing, the Lifetime type movies, then when you call and you meet that person, stay in touch. Maybe they didn't take your first one, but you know what? What are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for this. You know what? I'm going to go on a search for more of those. And when I find some more of those, whatever, I'll get back to you. Like, you keep it going. That's the other thing is that's why I keep saying you are the president and CEO. You've got to take 100 responsibility. Don't let them drag stuff out of you. You have to be taking responsibility. You have to recreate that relationship again. Maybe 2 years goes by and I'll say, I know we haven't talked to each other for a couple of years, but I'm now doing a movie. I now just got some of the stuff in that I think might be a right fit. Just like with the woman last week, I actually got some stuff in that I knew was a fit for what they were looking for. So,
and I have a question about what happens when you're in the middle of production or working with someone and something goes wrong, as it often does. How do you maintain trust in the midst of a working scenario?
Well, sometimes I'll sit down and talk to that person, because what's behind every upset, what is behind almost every upset that I've ever come across is fear. And I have a saying, and from Flash Forward, I had rules, and I got one of these from Landmark Education, is you only complain to the person who's can do something about it. Because on a set, they're going to go to everybody else and complain instead of coming to you, and you could have solved that problem in 1 minute, right? So what I do is when I hear there's any little grumblings going on at all, any little upsets going on, I take the person aside right away and say, listen, what can I do? What do you need from me that I can do to make sure that you're getting the time you need as the makeup artist? Because the director's asking for a lot of time, when it comes to rehearsing, and they're taking some of your time. Instead of going to her or him, come, what is that it? Is that what the issue? Like, I find out what it is, the upset. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's just fear that maybe they don't know that it's their first time in that position or whatever. So I'll just have a heart to heart. I learned about how to do that when I was one of the first female vice presidents at 29 years and years ago in the television network. The first day, my boss told me, he brought me up to his office, and I thought it was to give me a hug. And he said, Suzanne, you're a woman. And I said, yes, Mr. Nathanson. And he said, so therefore you're stupid. And I will do everything in my power to put you in a kitchen where you belong. I've never been in the kitchen. Mom never let us in the kitchen. But anyways, I was so devastated because, first of all, I thought, oh, they found out. I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. Oh my God, somebody found out I'm an imposter. That's the first thing our brain does, right? And then I thought, and so that went on for quite a few months until I did some classes on how do you relate to people, really, in a way that creates relationship. I can't tell you how important it is. Like I said at the beginning, it's relationship, possibility, opportunity, and action. So I went and did some courses on communication up in Ottawa. I came back to Halifax to work, and I went upstairs and I said to him, I'm here to talk today. Instead of feeling like a little tiny pea sitting in a big giant chair, and my voice would come out squeaking every time I'd have to go up to his office for those first 8 months. After that communication course, I walked up the 3 sets of stairs, and I went into his office, and I sat in the chair feeling like a human being, and no longer a little pea, and my voice was normal because I was confident. Starting with relationship. So I said to him, I heard you went to Japan for a vacation while I was away in Ottawa. And he said, yeah. And I said, how was that? So I just talked like humans to humans, like relationship. We talked for an hour about Japan and Asia and everything. And I said how much I wanted to go and that I would go at some point, to see it. And then I said to him, by the way, now I felt we had sufficient relationship. I said, Mr. Nathanson, why did you do to me what you did last year? It was very upsetting, and then continued to do for so many months. And he said, Suzanne, I was scared to death of you. I've never worked with a woman before. This is my network originally. I'm 65 years old. I'm retiring soon. And I didn't want to have to learn how to work with a woman now. So I just thought if I could get you out of the building and out of my life, that would solve all the problems. And I said, well, I'm still here. And he said, no, and I'm happy. We became so close that we both cried. I was leaving when we moved to Philly. My husband and Halifax. We were so close. It was amazing. He told right in front of everybody when I was leaving, he told me he loved me. I mean, it was like, I thought, and I said, what is it that you have such a hard time coming downstairs, And he said, I'm just scared of everybody, truly. And I said, well, I just did a course on communication. Do you want me to coach you? And he said, yes. So I not only affected my life with him, I affected the lives of 180 other people in the building. So that's what I mean by rising above. What can I, advice I was getting from people, oh, you should sue, you should do that, you should quit. And I'm thinking, no, something's wrong. I'm 29 years old. I knew something was wrong with that advice. How can I rise above?
I think you've already answered my next question. So Brian, I'm going to let you take the ball. Just about mistakes. Go ahead.
Yeah, we wanted to inquire about the importance of NDAs. Are those still important today? Is it a necessary shield in protecting our idea?
I don't know. I've never done it. I've had to sign some.
Oh, wow.
In our pitching world, when we'd sign them, yes, for Disney, back when we were working on the big budget stuff, we'd have to, Disney would send over, or Miramax, I guess was my first one, so you'd have to sign, the DNAs. But is that what you mean? It's kind of like the permission to read your script or something?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe I'm just too Canadian. I just trust. I've never had a problem.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's one thing that I've always heard is important, but it's amazing to me that you don't do that. It's refreshing.
Every now and then an agent might ask for it, but maybe twice out of all my years. But
Okay.
Never. I don't know. I don't know. To me, it's kind of like recently I was chatting with an agent, and the writer had only sent 20 pages of a project, and I went, why? Like, why? Like,
Yeah.
who are you? Spielberg?
Right.
Even Spielberg wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? If Spielberg was sending a script, he'd send a whole script. Like, you want to tease me? No, don't tease me. I need to know. Just like a log line. I need to know, the beginning, the middle, and the end. What happens at the end? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
don't just give me 20 pages and think, no. Anyways, no. It's like,
Yeah.
enough. And I used to say to people in my class, pitch to everybody, pitch to people at the bus stop. And one of the guys raised his hand and said, Suzanne, I have a car. I don't take the bus. I said, you do now. Just to get to
We're gonna move on to one of the, I think, Brian, you're up. We're gonna talk about a movie.
Yeah. You produced Betty, which is a British romantic comedy with Christopher Walken and Naomi Watts.
So
Would you say, I know you've spoken about lots of different genres you're passionate for, but is comedy or rom-com a genre that feels especially close to your heart?
Rom-com is always going to be up there. I love Hallmark, of course, and Lifetime and all that stuff. But I also love on Hallmark. I also do all the mystery ones. I love solving. We just watched His and Hers, or Hers and His, or something last night, a TV series, and I love trying to figure out who did it, like who's the whodunit, right? The Agatha Christie kind of stuff. I love that too. So I love thrillers. I am crazy about sci-fi, good quality, like that. Was it The Fifth Element, the one with Bruce Willis? Like, I could watch that 1,000 times. Die Hard, I've seen at least, I'd say 12 times. So action. Love action kind of stuff too. I optioned a great book from a very famous author and got a great A-list director on board because it's a great mystery where it's a female lead and she and the guy from the CIA have to save the day kind of thing. Like, I love figuring out that kind of stuff too. I love psychological thrillers, The Usual Suspects. I'm doing one of those now called The Back Nine. Oh, there's Alfred. Alfred was wonderful. Alfred Molina is so wonderful. He even mentioned us, I think, in People magazine at one point when he was doing his next big giant film, that he mentioned how fun it was to work on Undertaking Betty. He came to me when we did a big screening here for everybody in LA for all the, everybody. And he came and we sat afterwards and shared and answered questions for like an hour and a half. He was wonderful. My God, actors are so wonderful. Anyway.
And then there's The Calling. You did. Adapted from Inger Ash's Wolf's novel starring Susan Sarandon and Donald Sutherland and Topher Grace. What drew you to that story, Suzanne?
Well, that story was, one of the writers was a friend. I think the writers, one of the two people in charge kind of thing, writer and his friend or whatever, introduced me. I loved it. I wasn't there for the whole time on set because I was more of an exec. I kind of help guide things a bit, and then the Canadian producer, because it ended up being a Canadian production, which is fine because I'm Canadian, but they need somebody there on set and a resident of that province to be the person in charge. But I went up and I had such a great time because I knew a lot of the people already. And I felt, but who I didn't know was Topher Grace. And I just thought he was so wonderful. We used to do yoga on Sunday. We'd hire a yoga person and do our meditations and everything Sunday mornings. It was so much fun. Donald, he was fine, but he wasn't so much a people person. Like it's kind of like certain actors kind of really kind of keep to themselves a bit, and others don't, like I was saying before. So, but that was fun. It was very fun. I mean, the one after the one Jericho mentioned, I love because I love working with Jimmy Caan. I worked with some really great people over the years and pretty much fell in love with it. Just about everybody, actually. Maybe about 1% I had issues with. 1%.
Would you say, as a filmmaker yourself, what's a film that you love? One that you'd watch over and over again?
Well, I did love doing Time Toys. It was with all those children, and it was so much fun. And one of the kids was a singer, kind of a well-known even at the time, and certainly now. And he was 12, but he wrote a lot of beautiful, beautiful songs and played for us. So that was fun. One of the ones that I think is still my favorite of all the ones I did. You mean, or my favorite films on
that you would enjoy watching, not specifically that you done, but
got it.
Any film that you love watching that you watch over and over and suggest to other people.
Well, certainly Die Hard. Anything Christmas, Christmas in Connecticut. I've probably
Me too.
20 times, I'd say, maybe 30 over the years. One of my favorites, Miracle on 34th Street, obviously. One of my other favorites, The Ref. I love that Christmas movie. I've watched that multiple times. Oh my God.
What
it's
about
so,
directors and sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
okay.
Oh, I'm
No,
just wondering if there were directors and actors you hope to collaborate with in the future, even that you haven't collaborated with.
well, one of them is right now. It's happening. It's Oz Scott. That's been on my list for a long time to work with him.
Nice.
Yeah, there's certainly some other directors. Sean McNamara and I have a project together. I love him. He does a lot of social impact stuff as well, but we're doing a thriller, pretty intense thriller together. Um, I like, yeah, there's a, oh, yeah, no, some of them I can't say because we're actually out to them right now. But yeah, there's some other great directors. I'm kind of lucky to have some wonderful writers in my life. My own partner, Jay, my husband is a phenomenal writer. One of the people that I've been friends with for a long time is Mark L. Smith. He wrote The Revenant, and he wrote a script for me years ago. So he wanted to direct. So we did a little $200,000 movie with him many years ago, which turned out to be very lucrative. And and he's now, of course, gigantic. And we watch his all his stuff, of course, all of his movies and his TV series on Netflix. And I've optioned 3 of his projects, and we're doing another one right now, actually. We're putting that director on. I can't say who it is, but so sometimes it's the actors, sometimes it's certain actors I want to work with, certain directors I'd love to work with. I'm kind of lucky in that I'm manifesting. I do a lot of manifesting. Behind me are pieces of Wallace Wattles' book. I did the 4.5 month course last year. Great coach, Barbara Doist, in his work, and from 1909, and then I've been reading, of course, Florence's book again, Florence Shinn. I'm on my 3rd time reading that. So a lot of that is like, what is your passion? What is your desire? And then being able to put it out to the universe and have it come back. Because so many times we're so busy with the negative element of, oh, that's not going to work. I hear people all the time. I was on a panel one time. I didn't mean to be rude, but I was, because the girl in the audience, crimes, women in crime, or I forget, and it was a huge group, like must have been 300 or 400 people in the room. And she said, well, it's all easy for you guys here in Hollywood, because we held the thing here. And I was on a panel at the time, and she said, but I live over in, I don't know, Wyoming or something. And she said, so for me, all the pitching stuff and all that's really hard. And I just blurted out. I felt bad after. Well, not that bad, actually. I think I felt okay. As I said, oh my God, I didn't know you didn't have phones in Wyoming. And the place went so silent. The other panelists put their head down and went, oh, Suzanne, what a can of worms. But I got to tell you, people will find back doors when, well, I'm bad. I'll find a back door. I'll build one if there's none to try to get out of things sometimes. But my God, we build back doors. Oh, Suzanne, that can't be done. I can't raise money because I've never raised money before. Well, what do you think I am? Like people build such amazing conversations. What I used to say to people in Flash Forward is that conversation serving you? Really? Right. Is it going to make your film, your script going to get to anybody when you're thinking that I shouldn't pitch because I'm not in Hollywood? My God, right. Mark L. Smith lives in, I don't know, Carolina, North or South Carolina or something. You think that made it hard for him? No, he got on the phone.
So we are, sorry, we're going to have to wrap it up here. I'm sorry. Just so much to talk about, but this is our final segment. And before we wrap up, let's take a look forward. Is there anything, and I think there is, that you're currently working on or developing that you would like to share as we move into 2026?
Well, certainly the John Lennon film. I mean, that is so beautiful. I love it so much. I'm excited about starting on a TV series. And then I have another TV series that just came in that we're going to be pitching. I love my new partners. I'm working with Sunset over at Warner Brothers right now, which is just a nice little walk across the street, actually. So I guess what else? Yes, obviously the one based on the book with Sean McNamara. I'd love to get that up and going. I have a couple with Oz Scott. 3 with Scott, and that is just a dream come true. And the funding for that is pretty easy because it's Scott, and he's, he can just call actors, and we've got A-list actors. So those are the ones that I'm doing this year. It's actually a little overwhelming because I have funding for about 4. Oh my God! And Mark Smith, we're doing one of Mark Smith's projects, which is unbelievable. Mark L. Smith,
Wow.
and that's a big project. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's a thriller. It's a psychological thriller, one of my favorites. It's so good. It's like when you come to the end of one of his scripts, you get angry because it's like a good book. You don't want it to end. You know what I mean?
Right.
So those, I'm kind of busy. I think what's happening to me right now is probably good for about 2 years. I'm kind of stopped reading scripts right now. There's a few that I still have that I promised, but I'm actually kind of stopping for a while, just because we are in stages of almost pre-production with one of them. We're in soft prep right now on one. So I've got to kind of decide on where is my focus going to be, sort of thing.
So exciting to hear about what's going on with you in the future. And thank you for letting us look ahead with you. Brian, this is a good time for the final question of the day.
Final question. Okay, Suzanne, when you think about just the longevity in this business, what's one piece of advice you wish you'd been given earlier?
Well, I was going to say to have fun, but that's innate in me. It's like I have fun every single day. There's no days I don't have fun. So it's not that. The one thing I think would be to really trust your instincts. Like really, if you love that script, then make it happen. Don't let anything stand in the way. Nobody. We pitched it 44 times to 44 companies at the studios back then because everything was bigger budgets. And everybody said no. Best script we've ever read, but we're not looking for this kind of romantic comedy thing. We're doing kind of makeovers of something, Beverly Hillbillies or whatever. And I just, every time I'd laugh at the end and go, hey, man, did they miss one hell of an opportunity? Bloody hell. Not only did they get to know me, this wonderful person and somebody who makes people smile and laugh, but they're missing the opportunity to win awards, to win a BAFTA, which won a BAFTA, by the way, right? So it's kind of like, I just have to say, you know what? There's so many other companies that I can pitch to. And if I can't make it, then what I'll do is do it myself. Like Kate and I, after a while, we said, hey, let's just start raising money ourselves and making the movies ourselves. And then we started meeting these people who already have some money in hedge funds. So it's a lot of it is don't be doubting yourself. Yes, it's going to happen because the brain is still, we're not that old. We're 200 million, I think it is, or whatever. Not even that long, 200,000 years old. We're not very old. So the part of the brain in the negative is much bigger than the positive part. But you can reprogram your brain. It can be rewired. But you have to do the rewiring. You have to go, no, you know what? I don't care about that rejection. Wasn't that fun? I got to meet another person. Yoo-hoo! Now I can go on to the next one, and then I'll meet them, because I'll end the call with, okay, I guess it's not something you're looking for, but can I call you back again if I think I'm finding so? And they always say yes, call back again. So to me, like, don't stop. Just have fun. God Almighty, people, we are making movies, for the love of God. We're not changing tires at a garage. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we're having fun, and we're providing fun to the rest of the world. We're providing an escape to the rest of. We're providing laughs. We're providing opportunities for them to cry and get other things out because they relate to something that you put on screen for them. We have such a wonderful, wonderful job. The best job is better than working in a candy store, for the love of God, right? I mean, I love C's Candy. I mean, that would be a best job ever, but I get to bring that candy to the whole world.
Yeah.
And we don't get that. So, yes, it's professional. God damn it, wear your business hat. But at the same time, have fun. And you're going to have, what's going to bring people to you in your playground is you saying, do you want to come play? Not, do you want to come and be miserable like me? No.
That's awesome. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, those insights. All of this has been incredibly generous and helpful. So thank you.
Oh, I loved it. It was great fun, guys. I love reliving it. It gets me excited again, too,
Yeah. Thank you for your perspective on pitching, relationships, and leadership. It's incredibly valuable to all of us. I'm sure I'm going to cut this into pieces and send out little bites to people on social media about this. So it's been so great. It's a privilege to have this conversation with you, very intimate conversation that not many people get a chance to do. So really,
Yes, a real honor having you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
and
certainly
thank you.
and get my blogs, guys, because a lot
Yeah,
of them
absolutely. I'm going to
blog.
put that on the screen in just a second.
good.
Thank you to our audience, whether you're here live or watching the replay. We appreciate your time. I'm going to put the banner on the screen right now.
I
So
thought one of
we
the questions
have
was somebody in
your
Victoria.
website. What's that?
I said one of the people I saw came up was from Victoria, British Columbia, who I taught.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
We appreciate your time, our audience. SuzanneLyons.net is the personal website, and then Snowfall Films, and you'll find lots of juicy information on that.
Yeah. And there's my book. You can see it very
And
clearly.
there's her book as well. You'll see that on the site as well.
Well, this has been the Cinematic Bridge on the Art of Filmmaking, presented by Golden Gate Films.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye,
Amy.
everybody.
Take care.